All right, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. Today it is such an exciting day to be able to have this webinar joining us across our country. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. And I want to thank the Bahamas National Trust, the College of the Bahamas, the Ministry of Social Services and National Development, and most importantly, Portia Sweeting of the Bahamas National Trust, who's pulled this wonderful idea together to join us across, I believe, 6 or 7 islands in our nation, and to discuss something that I think has been on all of our minds for many years, and that is our adaptation to climate change. And as you know, the webinar is in recognition of National Women's Week 2015, and it is incredible that we've been able to join up cyberly so many wonderful women who have been working so hard to help bring light to what the environment is to us and our need to sustain it in some way. So just off the top, I just want to have some light housekeeping things discussed, particularly for those that are joining us as observers. And you will be able to participate at the end of the discussion. What we have lined up today is 6 panelists who will discuss different areas of their work in our country, looking at the environment and climate change. So most of you will have your microphone muted until it is your time to speak, and most of you will then be invited to join us. So just as a gentle overview, stay tuned. This presentation is being recorded. It will be loaded up on the Bahamas National Trust face page and their YouTube channel. So if you don't quite grasp everything that's said, because we're going to be going through it fairly quickly, please know that you can get access to it later. So just to get us started, just to kind of orientate where we are, you know, the bottom line is that we have been harming our country and our planet for a very long time for a variety of reasons. There's been a lot of denial as to what's been coming down the pipeline, but the truth is facts do not cease just because they're being ignored. And the other thing that we all know is that we all depend on our resources and our planet to sustain life. And the fact is we haven't been doing what we are supposed to be doing. The climate change actually is the greatest challenge to facing humanity at the start of the 21st century, and here we are a decade and a half in. And the bottom line is failure to meet our challenge is going to impact our human development around the planet. The other thing that we know is that in 2015, what we thought was really a bad situation in 2012 is that it's actually worse. We now know that we've had the lowest summer ice coverage in the Arctic. We know that the Greenland is melting. We know that the Antarctica is also in crises, that it's been the hottest decade in our planet, the hottest year ever, that global emissions of greenhouse gases have now gone beyond 400 parts per million, and that we're looking for sure probably 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees heating Celsius and probably up to 4 degrees if certain things don't change. And I think that's the hope we have with us now, is that the meeting in Paris in December will help us out. Now, whoever got that phone on, off it. In 2013, we passed the 400 parts per million mark of carbon dioxide concentration in our atmosphere. And that's the first time since humans were humans. So, you know, it's pretty interesting. But this next slide that I'm throwing up there looks at it from thousands of years before today. And if you look at where we are currently, you can see we don't have no more time, ladies and gentlemen who are joining us today, to play with this. This is a serious situation. So climate change is a reality. It's happening now. No country is immune, and our country is in imminent peril. And if we mobilize, we can make a difference. And they've agreed to do so in 2015 in December. Next week, actually, the Commonwealth ministers are meeting now. So you know that this is an opportunity for us to really recognize past the point of no return, we now need to do something. So why sustainability now? Well, that's just listing some of the issues that are impacting us. And now we're going to, that's enough from me. I got some more slides, but that's enough from me. So I want to say that we will, is the minister ready? I want to say we were hoping to have remarks from Minister Griffin, but she'll be coming as soon as she gets from the House. So we're going to move on to the panelists. And Shanique Smith, you are our first panelist, and I've just given a little seeding to some of the stuff on climate change that impact us. But Shanique Smith has worked in the environmental field for over 15 years, and she specialized in conservation and mitigation efforts in the Bahamas. She's done extensive work and stakeholder consultations with the government and NGOs and local community members. She's knowledgeable in so many areas. Shanique, you're an amazing lady. You're instrumental in helping to develop many of the management plans that we're using in our parks. And now in 2012, I understand you joined the Nature Conservancy, who you are representing here today as their senior policy representative, and now you've moved to the directorship. And we'd like to congratulate you on that. Shanique holds a bachelor's in biology, a minor in environmental studies from St. Benedict's, and a master's in environmental consultancy from Newcastle University. And Shanique is a native of Nassau, but she's got her roots in Abaco and Eleuthera, and we can't lose them. So Shanique, I'd like you to join us and welcome and thank you and share what you have to say for us today.
Okay.
Shanique?
Thank you, Margot. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and it's my screen showing as well?
Yes, your screen is wonderful.
Okay, thank you. So thank you to you, Margot, and the Ministry of Social Development and BNT for the invitation to be here today. I'm going to try to be quick because I know we have a lot of dynamic ladies who are waiting to share their information after me. So as was mentioned, I'm representing the Nature Conservancy, and I'm going to be just giving a snapshot of climate change in the global, regional, and some local implications today. So what is climate change? For the most part, climate change has been attributed to a change in our long-term climate, not everyday weather, that's been due to human activity. And for the most part, it's being generated because of what they call greenhouse gases. We've started using more and more fossil fuels as we've evolved as a race on the planet, and this is now affecting our climate and other things negatively. So the Nature Conservancy, who are we and how do we fit into the picture with climate change? The Nature Conservancy is one of the largest environmental NGOs in the world. We work throughout the U.S., in all of the U.S. states, as well as 35 countries around the world. And we are also here in the Bahamas working on issues such as climate change. In terms of our mandate and our major focus, we're focusing on 5 areas. You can see in this graphic that's displayed, we're looking at land, water, oceans, and city. And encompassing all of that is climate. So climate is cross-cutting. It affects everything in terms of the environment. And the Conservancy is really trying to work on how can we sustain the environment while trying to meet the growing needs of the population of the world. And so climate is definitely, as Margot said, one of the greatest challenges we're facing. And so this is something that the Nature Conservancy, along with others, has taken on as a major initiative to try and address in the world today. So in terms of a global perspective, in terms of how is climate change affecting us, I've just pulled some facts off of the internet to kind of give us a picture. This is a report that NOAA released last month. The first 9 months of 2015 has been the hottest on record. And they give some stats looking at global land and ocean surface temperatures, looking at as well as average sea temperatures. And what we're seeing is this continuing trend of more and more warming which is alarming for us as well as for the environment. Another graphic to help get a picture at the global level. Where is all of this heat going? This warming that we're seeing and we're hearing about. Actually, the ocean is getting the brunt of it. So the ocean is actually accumulating more than 90% of the energy that's being stored or being generated in our climate system. And this is important, and I chose to pull out the oceans because the Caribbean as well as the Bahamas, we are all ocean states. The ocean is what defines us, and this is what has the biggest impact on our way of life and our climate. And so this is significant for us to note that the ocean is really taking the brunt of a lot of these changes as a result of climate change. So what is the Conservancy doing? The Conservancy as a global organization has the great ability to work at different scales. So the Conservancy is working at global scale, it's working at the regional scale in the Caribbean, and we're also here working in the national scale in the Bahamas. So I'm just going to give you a snapshot of some of what we're doing at each level. So this graphic here is just showing you the Conservancy as an organization around the world has decided to work on trying to reduce some of the generation of greenhouse gases, which is contributing to global climate change, by working with 5 of the largest emitting countries around the world over the next 5 years to really bring down their emissions. Another major initiative of the Conservancy at the global level is we are recognizing that oceans are taking the brunt of climate change, is we really want to look at conserving and protecting at least 400 million ocean acres in a bid to actually combat and mitigate some of the impact of climate change. So I'm now going to jump to the regional perspective. In terms of coral reefs around the world, the Caribbean is considered the heart of coral reefs in this region. There are only 2 major regions for coral reefs around the world. It's actually in the Caribbean where we are, and it's actually in the Pacific, as this graphic depicts. 10% of the world's coral reefs are actually found in our region. However, coral reefs are already feeling the impacts of climate change, and they are struggling to try and actually come to grips with it. So this is again a recent report just released in October of this year from NOAA declaring that the threat of global coral bleaching is here. And we've been seeing actually for some time, at least a year now, reports of bleaching of coral around our region. And this is being attributed in part to the impact of the global warming as well as the temperature rising in oceans, which is affecting the corals and causing the bleaching. So again, just pulling on this ocean's impact and the fact that we are an ocean state, we define ourselves by oceans, tourism, food in terms of seafood, all of these things are being impacted by bleaching and the temperature rises of climate change.
Oy.
What are we doing at the level? The Conservancy is working around the region using 4 strategies to help with the coral bleaching as well as just protection of our marine environment. One of our biggest initiatives is something called the Caribbean Challenge, where we're working here in the Bahamas as well as with other governments around the region to protect marine areas and protected areas and to get them effectively managed so that we can try to see how we can combat climate change. We're also looking at coral restoration. We do know that there's been a lot of bleaching. There's been a significant decline in corals around the world. The Caribbean is no different over the last 10 to 20 years and more. So we are looking at strategies at how we can actually help to restore and rebuild coral reefs in our region. We're also looking at coastal defense. One of the impacts of climate change I haven't really focused on up to this point is sea level rise. This is definitely a concern for the islands of the Caribbean, which are a lot of them are low-lying. We're all very coastal. As sea level rises, we face the threat of erosion as well as the loss of land. So any defense such as mangroves, coral reefs, and others in terms of the coast that can help with sea level rise, abating flooding is definitely something that we want to target. And last but not least, we're working with people around the region to see how people can work along with nature to help with the process of resiliency and combating change. So I'm now going to jump to the local level impacts of climate change. Locally, there's a lot at stake. And I'm just giving a snapshot again of a study that was done for the Bahamas in 2012, and it talks about what would be the impact on the Bahamas if we had 1 meter sea level rise, 2 meter sea level rise, or we had beach erosion of either 50 meters or 100 meters. And you can see from this little table, it's significant. We stand to lose at least 90% of our seaports, which are basically docks and marinas, 14% of road networks, major tourism resorts, which is the driver of our economy. We stand to lose at least 36% of them because most of them are on the coastline. This doesn't speak to communities where we live, but if tourism resorts are impacted at 36%, we can extrapolate that it's probably going to be similar or even higher for us in terms of where we live. And we would have seen with the recent hurricane in the southern Bahamas, we had basically for Crooked Island, an entire island or community wiped out in one event. So the possibility of flooding, coastal erosion, and all of this is really real. This isn't something that's far off in the distance. We're starting to see the impact now. It's climate change is an issue we really do need to pay more attention to. Margaret mentioned that the meeting in Paris is happening in a matter of 5 days. It's going to officially start. The Bahamas is participating. We've submitted our national kind of contribution to what do we intend to do about climate change. And I'm just pulling a quote out of this report that says, the Bahamas recognize that, climate change has an effect on us, but we understand that there's an urgent need for us to adapt. This is basically the message at the local level and local implications. We have to change and we have to adapt in how we live and in how we operate within the environment. That's the takeaway message, I think, for all of us, and we have to grapple with that in whatever sector or area of the Bahamas we work or live in. And I think in terms of local strategies for the Conservancy and others, we have to continue to do a lot of what we've been doing and probably bring some new solutions into the mix. So the Conservancy has been working along with the Bahamas National Commission, Department of Marine Resources on protected areas and really trying to protect and conserve healthy areas of the marine environment. We've been working on mangrove restoration. So there's a picture of some restoration we did in Bonefish Pond National Park a few years ago. And then I have a picture of a parrotfish in terms of grain solutions. We have to look at other things we haven't even really addressed at the national level. Studies have found that the most resilient reefs in the Bahamas, sea level rise as well as temperature changes, are reefs that are healthy, that have high levels of herbivores, actually helping keep coral free of algae. And the parrotfish has been identified as one of the key species that's actually working on keeping coral free of algae. So there are calls and there's an effort, I think, coming soon to say we need to do more about protecting parrotfish and other herbivores. So these are some of the things that I just wanted to bring to light. Hopefully it's been insightful. It's been a quick presentation, but I think definitely we have a lot to work to do at the local level. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it once again.
Shanique, that was absolutely wonderful overview. It's almost terrifying what we're looking at in a real way. I believe the Minister Griffin, you have joined us. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Margot?
Oh, yes, this is she. This is me. I'm so glad to have you here, Minister. What a wonderful thing you're doing. I don't know if you recognize that this climate change issue is going to impact us as much as it really is going to impact us socially. It's a very serious situation. But let me just first, I don't know if you really need a big introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our Minister of Social Services and National Development, and a woman responsible for our Women's Affairs and our Women's Bureau's desk, and who has helped to ensure that this conversation that we're having nationally, I mean, this is really a unique opportunity we have to be able to speak to persons who are around our archipelago. And thank you so much for joining us here today. And we'd love to hear what you have to share with us. And I hope you're able to stay for the rest of the presentation. Minister.
Well, thank you, Margot. And I'm certainly going to try to stay with you. And I can tell you that I am very much aware of the impact of climate change on globally as well as here in the Bahamas, because social services actually has to deal with a lot of the fallout of flooding, etc., that we experience. And I know that is only just a part of it. But I want to be able to say very quickly, because I want you to get on with what you're doing. I was supposed to be able to welcome you all, but you are all welcoming me instead, because I've just been able to get on. But I want to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon on this webinar to discuss this timely topic of adaptation to climate change. And I understand that we have persons listening from Abaco, Long Island, Grand Bahama, Cat Island, New Providence, and Eleuthera, and hopefully other parts of our country. But I am sure that we will all agree that the Bahamas, like other small island developing states, must enhance its resilience to the impact of climate change and find ways to address this serious problem. The Bahamas is one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to the adverse effects of climate change. And these impacts can include higher air and ocean temperatures, sea level rise, increased intensity of hurricanes, reduced availability of freshwater lenses, increased storm surges, coastal erosion, increased incidences of vector-borne diseases like malaria and dengue fever. We would have just experienced so much extreme flooding in our family islands, the southern islands, where Hurricane Joaquin would have visited, and it left a whole, with the floods came fear of vector-borne diseases. Also, there's ocean acidification, which may have severe effects on our coral reefs and fisheries, which are very important to us. And so as women and young women, we must resolve to help this situation. And I look forward to listening further to the rich exchange of information over the next hour, in the next half hour, I guess, with experts in the field as well as the students. And I wish to thank the Bahamas National Trust for providing this platform for this webinar, and Mrs. Margot Blackwell for guiding us through it, and our dynamic panel for serving as inspiration and resource persons, and the staff of the Bureau of Women's Affairs for their assistance. So ladies, students, and teachers, enjoy the next few minutes together as we connect with and learn from the professionals who will be discussing our options for adapting to climate change. So thank you very much, and God bless you as you continue to listen and to participate.
And thank you, Minister, so much for your sharing and for your incredible oversight. It's obvious that we got a lot of work to do, as Shanique said, as well.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I'll move right on with where we were going, and our next presenter is one of our wonderful young people, Nikita Shiel-Roll, and she is representing the Young Marine Explorers, which is a youth-driven citizen science coral monitoring program. And she designed this framework when she was working as an undergraduate in the University of Miami. And it's amazing what her tenacity and persistence has been able to achieve. She also has gotten her Master's of Science in Biodiversity. And in her mind, Young Marine Explorers is actually a community where Bahamian youth becomes the leaders that address the challenges of the Bahamas. And the mission is to educate, inspire youth to become leaders needed to address these challenges. And my dear Nikita, you will be on in 2 seconds. I want to thank you for your work and bringing the young people together, because, quite frankly, we're leaving you a planet that needs a lot of help. So Nikita, you're on.
Thank
Are
you
you
so
there?
much. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, good.
Okay, wonderful. It's a pleasure to be with everyone. Hello to everyone throughout the Bahamas. And I just wanted to show, oh no, I'm sorry.
You were there.
There we go. Can you still,
There you go.
you have me?
Good. Yeah,
All right,
got you.
so I just wanted to start off this presentation with a picture of myself so you actually have an idea of who I am, and that my life is mostly spent under the water, so I thought it was most appropriate to have a picture of me under the water. And today I'm going to be talking about coral reefs and climate change. And for many Bahamians, we've only actually appreciated 10% of our amazing country. This is because most people only know the Bahamas above the water. However, our country is 90% water, and our waters, our surrounding waters are actually supporting coral reefs. Today, I want us to go for a dive and for us to explore coral reefs in the Bahamas together. Coral reefs are home to many different animals. They are ecosystems rich in biodiversity, and many people call coral reefs the rainforest of the sea. This is because of how many different animals that can be found within a relatively small area. In coral reefs, we have tiny creatures that live in symbiotic relationships with each other, where they help make each other's lives better. Coral reefs also have large, colorful, intelligent creatures like the octopus that actually has 3 hearts, which I think is kind of crazy. But of course, coral reefs wouldn't be the same without the bizarre creatures like worms that look like Christmas trees. Not only are coral reefs beautiful, but they help to support our way of life as Bahamians. For example, one of my favorites, food. We love seafood. It's a huge part of our culture, but not only do coral reefs provide food, think about all the jobs required to get the plate of food on your table. The gas station owner was paid for the gas that went into the boat. The captain of the boat was paid to drive the boat. The fisherman was paid for catching the fish. The chef was paid to cook the fish, and the waitress was paid to serve you the fish. So coral reefs are really important to help supporting our Bahamian economy. Additionally, we like spending time in the water, whether we are sitting in the water, swimming, or snorkeling. Also, we can't forget that tourists specifically come to the Bahamas to explore our coral reefs. You know, we all just experienced what Hurricane Joaquin can do, and this is actually an image of Hurricane Joaquin. And coral reefs, if you didn't know, they serve as a barrier that help to break down wave energy from big storms. So the first take-home message that I'm going to send you home with today, and this is a cartoon picture of myself, is that coral reefs are important for Bahamians and our way of life. All right, so don't forget that. Mm-hmm. But we have a problem. Climate change threatens our way of life as Bahamians because it threatens the health of our coral reefs. Climate change is one of the causes of coral bleaching, and so this image you're looking at is actually a coral bleaching. You see the white part and then, of course, the colorful part. Corals have a symbiotic relationship with an algae called zooxanthellae. When the water gets warmer as a result of global warming, the algae and the coral start to argue. It gets to the point where they can't live together anymore, so the algae leaves. But what happens is the algae gives the coral its color, but it also helps to give the coral nutrients. So although when the algae leaves, although the bleached coral isn't dead, it isn't as strong as it used to be, which makes it harder to defend itself from threats. Unfortunately, sometimes corals can't recover from bleaching episodes, which causes them to die. As we just talked about, dead coral means less seafood for us to eat, less jobs, and less protection from big storms. Another problem is ocean acidification. This topic can be a bit complex, but I think it's the easiest way if we think about it like this. As humans, we produce excess carbon dioxide through the fossil fuels that we use. Those molecules have to go somewhere. Under normal circumstances, the ocean would absorb that. But the problem occurs when we have too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The ocean then absorbs more than it can handle. With too much carbon dioxide in the ocean, a chemical reaction takes place that results in the ocean becoming more acidic. An acidic ocean is bad for coral reefs and for many animals. This is because these animals are made of calcium carbonate. And the acid can break down calcium carbonate and then can, kill corals or animals like conch and lobsters that we love so much. So I want you to remember this. This is the second point. Climate change threatens coral reefs, which impacts our economy, our health, and well-being. So this is something that we really have to take seriously because it impacts our future. And for those of you who are listening, I know that most people tuning in right now are all high school students. You and I are going to be the ones who are going to have to solve this problem. So this is a real issue for us. But, of course, I think there's hope. And you guys, those of you who are listening, all those high school students out there, you guys are the hope. And here are a few things that you can do to combat climate change. And it's going to take us creating change and changing the way that we live. So one thing that you can do is don't let your friends and family litter. Just don't let them do it. The second thing is save as much electricity as possible. Turn off the lights, and trust me, your parents are going to love you because that means their BEC bill is going to go down. And then the last thing, reduce the amount of plastic that you use. So carry a reusable water bottle and use reusable bags when you go shopping. I know it can be difficult at times because it's something different, but we have to start changing our habit. And I've actually just told, I have two staff members who work with me, and now if I don't carry a reusable cup, I have to pay them each $1. So we have to come up with creative ways to encourage ourselves to be more sustainable. And so with that said, now that you know how climate change can impact us, it is your responsibility to be part of the solution. And that is my short presentation on climate change and coral reefs.
Wow. So that's you, my darling? Hello?
Yes, that's me.
Thank you so much, Nikita. You got it right. We're leaving you a planet that you're going to have to do some extra mitigation and adaptation to. And let's hope that we can do it. Got to put some pressure, make sure that those people in Paris agree to something that is binding. And so we'll move right along, and the next presentation is from Olivia Patterson, another young one who's inheriting the planet that we're leaving her, us old heads. She is Olivia Patterson, and she is actually a 9th generation Hopetown resident. And I think that's just so fantastic. In 2005, Olivia returned home after she got her marine biology degree from Florida FIT, and she's now responsible for implementing program activities for the various communities at Friends of the Environment, that has been around as a nonprofit for many, many years. You have, Olivia's been instrumental in developing and helping to develop protected area proposals, including the one that helped protect so much of Abaco. And she's now a contract research assistant as well with the Bahamas Marine Mammal Organization. And Olivia, are you there with us? I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you, Margot. I'm here.
Hello?
Do you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
I do.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, I can hear you. Good. Go
Good
ahead.
morning, everyone.
And could you, we're running out of time, and the only pressure is that the school kids need to catch the bus. So
Okay,
go ahead.
no problem. So this is me. As Margot gave you a great introduction. I have a Bachelor of Science in Marine Biology, and I actually just last night submitted my last research paper for my Master of Arts in Biology.
Yay! Yay!
So I'm doing personally, so one of my goals is to learn as much as I can so I can help spread the word too, and that's something that we can all take on.
Good for you.
So here is Abaco. As you can see, we've got a lot of coast and a lot of islands. Abaco is the boating capital of the Bahamas, and for life in Abaco, boating in the sea is very important. Growing up, conching and fishing and living off the land and sea were very important to me and my family. This is Hopetown, where I live, and like Shanique mentioned, coastal development is something that's a huge problem with climate change because of how close we are building to the coast. As you can see, along Hopetown, we have numerous marinas and resorts, and a lot of the buildings, even personal homes, are right along the beach. This is a beach in Hopetown after Hurricane Sandy, and you can see a lot of people are trying to protect their homes by adding extra sand, and they've also experienced a lot of damage. And this is a perpetual problem. Every winter we lose sand on our beaches, and after every hurricane that passes by, we have to do a lot of damage control. Everyone has mentioned so far Hurricane Joaquin. This is a picture of it. And we in Abaco were fortunate to escape it, but I do have a personal experience with Hurricane Floyd in 1999, which at the time was one of the largest storms in the Atlantic. In Abaco, the community of Crossing Rocks was particularly impacted and had to be moved because the settlement was so damaged. So this picture here shows you where the old settlement was, and it had to be moved inland. So that is a big disruption to life as we know it. The Prime Minister at the time, Hubert Ingram, even mentioned it at a climate change conference in Copenhagen. He said the Bahamas is not one island, but a family of islands with needs to adapt in urban centers and in smaller, more remote family islands. Finding appropriate adaptation options are vital. Already in our experience, we have relocated an entire community. So as you can see, we have a lot of the similar challenges that the rest of the Bahamas are facing, just that each community has slightly different needs. So with all of the coastal development and development in general, it's very important that we plan properly for the future. And one of our challenges with that is the increasing demands for energy. So Friends of the Environment has, our approach is all about sustainability and environmental education, and one of the most important things for us is reaching out to youth. So one of our programs is an annual science fair. We just had ours last week, and the topic was climate change. And we were really impressed with all of the projects that were presented to us. Students are coming up with real applicable solutions that can make change in our communities, and you out there can make change in your own community. We're also helping communities by providing them the tools and simple solutions of things that they can do to make change. Just by planting a tree or by cleaning up your own community, you can make a difference in helping the Bahamas prepare for climate change. This is a picture of me with a community member who removed invasive plants from her yard, and we gave her a free native plant in return for her to put in her garden. That's something else that you can do to help increase resiliency, as Shanique mentioned. So Abaco is growing quite quickly, and a lot of the residents here are very interested in renewable energy, especially solar. So Friends of the Environment has actually recently built a research center, and the research center is doubling as a demonstration site for sustainable building. So this is our solar array. It has 70 panels, and we're actually powering the research center and our education center. So the solar panels are available for the community to come in and view and learn about in case they are interested in implementing solar at their own residences. We also have various types of appliances that can run off of solar or grid tie electricity, and those are all available for people to come in and view. And we offer tours for school groups as well. So if any of you out there are interested, you can ask your teacher to contact me, and we can help set up a tour. This is our battery bank that stores all the power, and there's a challenge with renewable energy in that it's not always sustainable, in that you might have garbage left over. So what we did was look for the most sustainable solution, and we found batteries that have a long lifespan. These are good for at least 25 years, and there's no lead or acid inside, which are very harmful to the environment. The batteries run on nickel and iron and salt water. So it's very simple and low impact to the environment. The Kenyon Center, our research center, is helping to also bring attention to climate change and important environmental issues by acting as a place for people to get together and share ideas. This picture is from our opening in April of this year, and we were lucky to have Minister Fitzgerald and Minister Gray join us for the ceremony. But we also had 150 people from across the community in Abaco. So every time we hold an event there or have a school group come in, we're helping to increase awareness and share what we know about adapting for climate change. And this is a picture of one of our new national parks that we're all very excited about. And here's some contact information from me as well. If anybody has questions, I know this went by really quickly, you can email me anytime or contact us through our website or our Facebook page. And please like our Facebook page.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Olivia. And we'll have this presentation up on the BNT Facebook for later so people can access this as well. And that's fantastic. Wow, so Abaco, you friends have really been working hard for the past 2.5 decades. Really wonderful work. And now we're going to be joined by Gabrielle Douglas, who is representing ANCAT, the Andros Conservancy and Trust, which is actually one of the oldest NGOs in the country. And it has been responsible for helping to ensure that a vast, vast majority of Andros has been shared as a national park. And Gabrielle is the Chief Education Officer, and she's actually the glue that keeps the board and the trust together. She plans programs and implements them, and she is a teacher by nature and a grandmother, and she cares very, very deeply for the environment and has done some incredible work. And so with that being said, Gabrielle, thank you for joining us from Andros. I wish I was home right now. Go ahead.
It's beautiful. It's the most gorgeous day. Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect. Just go ahead.
I'm Gabrielle Douglas. I run the Andros Conservancy and Trust, ANCAT, right here in Andros. We were formed in 1997 by concerned citizens, and we've been looking at climate change for quite some years now. We know on Andros we have the most amazing marine life. We have the second largest coral reef in the Western Hemisphere, which runs just off the eastern coast here. This is complemented by the tongue of the ocean, a 6,000-foot deep trench. And all this wonderful marine life that we have has been recognized by Dr. Sylvia Earle from Mission Blue, who named Andros as a hope spot in the world, a special place that's critical to the health of the oceans. It's called Earth's Blue Heart. So our work on climate change, we've had to acknowledge that, and also we've taken into consideration the mangroves. As you know, most of the animals, the marine animals that we all enjoy seeing and eating and experiencing, they all spend time in the mangroves. So we had to connect the two. And I've just put a little map here of Andros, just where we are. I wanted to show you the tongue of the ocean there, the coral reef that runs all this area. Can you see that? Then here we just have this small little, what we call a bottleneck harbor. And then this opens up into the most magnificent area called the Fresh Creek area. Now this little bottleneck here, it really is a bottleneck. Over the last few years, we realized that it was polluted by hundreds of thousands of bottles. Over the years, people used to throw their garbage into the water there. Also, in this spot right here, if you can see where I'm clicking, is our electricity plant. Now, also right here, let me just show you, is our southern marine protected area. So all of these combined together create like an adaptation dreamboat, because there's so much that needs to be done. So here, over the last few years, we've collected almost 30,000 glass bottles from the environment. We realized that when you touch a glass bottle that's been in water, it's usually hot. This has to add to the impact, the heating up of the water, the coral bleaching. Everything has to be working together to create this heated water. We've also worked with mangrove restoration. There are some areas on our island where the mangroves have been virtually dying because of entangled roots, the causeways which have not been built with any culverts of any size. Then a lot of the culverts, they become blocked by roots, by garbage, by people who don't really understand. And the natural flow of the ocean water, it keeps the mangroves living, it keeps it breathing, it helps to nourish all the animals that depend upon the mangroves, at least for some part of their lives. We all also know that mangrove forests are a natural carbon sink, and they protect the coastline from storm surges. Then we work with the youth. We work with at-risk youth, the youth that are the troublemakers, the ones who other people kind of don't want to work with. We realize that they are the future. They're the ones who are still going to be living here on Andros when everybody else has gone off to university or wherever. These children, they learn how to live sustainable lifestyles. They learn about garbage in the environment. They learn that the natural environment and the way it is and our human destiny is totally connected. We are connected to our environment. So these children have the $1,000,000 experience. Then we've also been working recently with our Light Our Darkest Night project, supported by Carib Save. This project has given us 200 solar light kits, which we're able to distribute within the community to any needy person. It's amazing how many people we've discovered who are really living with no electricity, children who are going to school with no electricity. So this is giving them a hope in life, a hope that maybe all this talk about climate change isn't all bad for them. These kits, there are 2 lights. There's a portable light. You can charge your cell phone. It's just a small solar panel that we're putting on people's roofs with a battery. And the demand is just overwhelmed me. I feel like some days it's like a tsunami of interest. So we're cutting our carbon footprint. We're reducing the pollution. We're protecting our coral reef. We're teaching our residents about the benefits of looking after the environment and the benefits of alternative. Please, if you're interested, go to ANCAT website and download our climate change newsletter. There's some fantastic ideas in there, and there's an explanation that it's easy to understand what's happening and how we can all be part of the adaptation. Thank you. That's me finished.
Wow, wonderful, Gabrielle. That is just fantastic sharing. I really appreciate it. And moving right along, we're now going to invite Lakeisha Anderson, who is the Grand Bahama Parks Manager for the Bahamas National Trust. And she serves as in the capacity of Parks Planner for the organization. And she's developed incredible proposals for several new national parks and management plans through stakeholder participation. Not an easy task. She's born and raised in Grand Bahama, and prior to coming to the Bahamas National Trust, she was a fisheries officer in the Department of Marine Resources for 5 years. So she comes with a wealth of information. I don't need to tell anybody about the Bahamas National Trust and the work that they do, but Lakeisha, a certified rescue diver, a reef check eco diver instructor. She's trained in rapid reef assessments, and she's just been all around our islands helping us out to make sense of many, many things. Lakeisha, welcome. You there?
Hi, I am here. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, my darlings.
Great. Thank you very much, Margot, and good afternoon to all. I am talking about climate change and protected area management. What adaptive managed strategies should be implemented. And as Margot said, there's no need to really say what the role is of the Bahamas National Trust, but I will still chime in and do so. So the BNT's mission is to conserve and protect the natural resources of the Bahamas through stewardship and education for future generations. So this is myself here, probably at a public meeting either getting a rock or 2 thrown at me, but unfortunately I am more so in public meetings rather than being under the water like some of my other colleagues. But just to give an idea or some definitions out of the way, a protected area as defined by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature defines it as clearly defined as a geographical space recognized, dedicated, and managed through legal or other effective means to achieve the long-term conservation of nature with associated ecosystem services and cultural values. Now, the National Protected Area System of the Bahamas consists of marine reserves managed by the Department of Marine Resources. To date, there are 4, and the national parks managed by the Bahamas National Trust. The Bahamas National Trust actually manages 99% of the protected areas throughout the country in a 32 national park system scattered throughout the Bahamian archipelago, protecting healthy examples of Bahamian marine and terrestrial ecosystems, as well as the wildlife they support. Now, the role of protected areas are used worldwide as a key strategy to conserve nature, including biodiversity and ecological function. They are also now expected to contribute to livelihoods for local communities, to boost national economies through tourism, to replenish fishery stocks, and now to play a key role in mitigation and adaptation to climate change. Protected area managers have a much more complex task to do now than we did decades ago. We not only need to meet the demands of a growing diverse group of stakeholders, but also managing increasing local human-induced threats of overfishing,
Hello? She's gone. Hello?
hello,
Hello? What happened? Oh, something dropped.
hello, can you,
Yeah. You dropped
yes,
for a minute there. Are you back? Yeah, you're back. Go
yes,
ahead.
my apologies, I'm not sure what happened. But protected area managed also has to now manage for the increased threats of overfishing, illegal and destructive fishing practices, unsustainable developments, dredging, sand mining, pollution, and invasive species. We must also now incorporate climate.
What is that? What is that?
We must also now incorporate climate change into management strategies. Now, how exactly do we do that? We need to focus on designing and building more resilient protected areas. Now, what do we mean by resilience? Resilience is the ability of an ecosystem to cope with a change or to recover towards a more coral-rich state following a disturbance. In the context of coral reefs, it's the ability of reefs to absorb coral bleaching events and to rebuild coral-dominated systems rather than shifting to a macroalgae-dominated system. Reef resilience really means building a resistance and recovery potential into our reef ecosystem by reducing or eliminating some of the local stresses I discussed earlier. And it's ultimately looking at coral reef health. A healthy reef or a healthy immune system better copes with and recover from major stresses such as hurricanes and other tropical storm impacts or mass bleaching events. Resilience of what to what? A resilience from a algae-dominated reef to a more coral-dominated reef. What exactly does a healthy reef look like? When we talk about resilience, scientists now have looked at several indicators that would contribute to an ecologically healthy reef system. One of the indicators includes a strong coral recruitment, so making sure there is substrate for juvenile corals to settle and grow, a healthy herbivore population, and an earlier presenter talked about the importance of parrotfish in controlling algae on a reef. We also want to look at more healthier corals, areas where there is little to no coral diseases, areas where there is low macroalgae cover, areas where there are large mature coral colonies, and areas where there is good water quality and temperature variability. Habitat complexity is also a good indicator, and the picture to the left actually shows an area with good rugosity. Coral diversity and class size distribution is also important. And again, like I mentioned, the suitable substrate to ensure that corals are allowed to grow and flourish. Some best practices for coral change adaptation factors in also terrestrial ecosystems, but it looks at ensuring the integrity of protected areas against development and incursions. Now, while this may seem like the obvious, there are many regions of the world, including areas here throughout the Bahamas, where deforestation or degradation of habitats actually take place in or near protected areas. We want to make sure manage protected areas for ecological integrity so that carbon continues to be taken up and stored. We want to ensure that destructive activities, we also want to look at reducing or eliminating local stresses that will take place within or even nearby protected areas. We also want to ensure that destructive activities does not take place within our protected area system. We want to ensure that all infrastructure built within protected areas, such as roads or campsites, are located away from carbon-rich ecosystems, such as our wetlands and our seagrass beds, and they're placed in locations that minimize impacts to these natural resources. We also want to make sure that there are fire management systems in place for terrestrial protected areas and that they are adequate to prevent and control unnatural wildfires during the dry season or drought. And we also want to make sure that we invest resources into restoring degraded habitats to its natural states, and examples of some of those would be for coral reefs, doing coral restoration, looking at seagrass and mangrove replanting or other types of restoration means. So as we move further in terms of planning for new protected areas or even managing our existing areas, we need to make sure we incorporate planning for climate change as our climate will continue to change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lakeisha, and all of you ladies. Now, we were to be joined by Vanessa Haley Benjamin from the Waterkeepers Bahamas, but she has not been able to get online. And we were to also hear from San Duncombe of Re-Earth, but she also is not online. So it leaves us, though, with 5 minutes where we can deal with some questions. So there's some questions that have come in, and one is, has any research been done to show a correlation between an increase in epidemics related to our food sources and changes in climate? Now that is a loaded question. Anybody want to take that? And you can unmute all the speakers. So whoever wants to take it, panelists, anybody? Panelists, did you hear me?
Yes.
Can you
okay, unmute yourselves if you're muted. But the question is, do we know of any research that shows a correlation between an increase in epidemics related to our food sources and changes in the climate? Nobody wants to take it?
Well, I mean, I know that there. Oh, go ahead, Margot.
Oh, I was just going to say that I do know research has been done, and there is a direct correlation. In fact, one of the challenges of climate change is the fact that food sources and the lack thereof and or other issues related to them will cause epidemics, and we've seen it in some places in the planet. So there is research out there. I think that was asked by a student, and you can do some work with that. Vanashiva, I think her name is, in India, has done a lot of work looking at some of this. Another question coming up for all of you. I think, Gabrielle, this is for you. Do you only work with at-risk youth or any youth who are interested?
No,
Gabrielle?
we only work with the at-risk children, I'm afraid. These are the children that other people bypass. And with my education background, I decided it was time to do something for them. We had a spate of a lot of criminals coming out of our local communities, and I wanted to stop that. So that was why we only work with at-risk children
Okay,
at the
that's a
moment.
If
good.
I
And
can
with
jump
funding, we could do an awful lot more, but the funding is only available for the at-risk children at the moment.
Yeah.
there
Okay.
are, for these, I was just going to say, Margaret, just for the person who was asking, of course, the Bahamas National Trust and both Young Marine Explorers and also Friends of the Environment in Abaco, so a couple of the islands all have educational programs for
Right.
youth and not only specific to at-risk youth. So you can find all our contacts on
Right.
the page that's up right now.
Yeah. And I know NCAT has also assisted some of our scholars here to do research on Andros and also be involved in some of their work. So they weren't
Yeah,
necessarily at risk. Yeah.
definitely. And other programs are open to everybody.
Yeah. Well, and there's a wonderful question here. I don't know who wants to answer this, but why isn't there a national park on Cat Island?
I can take that question. So you would have heard the government, the Minister of the Environment, announce a number of new national parks and protected areas declared in August. So that is the first phase of our efforts of expanding the protected area system of the Bahamas. In our second phase, we will be looking at areas where there are gaps in protected areas, and Cat Island was actually one that was already identified. And I know we do have people on the ground in Cat Island who are willing to assist with getting those efforts underway. And we will be looking into getting the science, the data collected to support a new national park for Cat Island.
Kind of a This is a follow-up question in a way, and it's really directed to Ms. Shanique. It's from a student, a 12th grade student in Central Eleuthera High School, and they are asking, Ms. Shanique started off the session by speaking on the Caribbean Challenge and how the Nature Conservancy is trying to reduce the effects of climate change, specifically global warming. And you also spoke on how locals are at high risk. And the question is, but how are the locals being incorporated to make your efforts more effective? Are they being actively engaged in these efforts? How? All right, Shanique, that's a loaded one for you.
Challenge initiative in the Bahamas. They mentioned that specifically in terms of involving community members and others who may be interested. The Caribbean Challenge focuses primarily on protected areas. So the Conservancy has been working, as I mentioned in my presentation, with the Bahamas National Trust, as well as the Department of Marine Resources and the Bass Commission, to reach out to community members to talk about what areas in their community they want to see protected. We come sometimes with proposals of general areas of where we have identified through studies, scientific studies, and perhaps other means of where we think are important areas in a community to be protected. But we don't know the community like people who live there and are out and about every day. And so through the stakeholder process, this is where community members have an opportunity to say this is what we want protected and the reasons why. And they can also talk about their experience with things related to protected areas, or maybe even some of the stuff we spoke about today, flooding, erosion, etc. So that's one avenue. We are definitely trying to incorporate community members in the work that we do.
Okay. That's great. One of the questions that follow up as well is, does the Bahamas Climate Change Plan 2015 include any regulations regarding car emissions? And by the way, where can we find it for public view?
So I don't think that there is a a plan per se, an updated one. The Bahamas did a national climate change adaptation action plan that was in 2008. Not 2008, sorry, 2005. So it's a bit of a dated document. The document that I refer to in my presentation is actually something the Bahamas government submitted in advance of the COP21 that's happening in Paris, that talks about what the Bahamas wants to commit to from 2015 going into 2020 in terms of climate change. That document, I found that on the climate change website, so the UN climate change website. I just Googled the COP21 and the Bahamas, and I got that document. I'm not sure where it's available, kind of from a local website from the Bahamas side of things, but I got that on the website of the UN Climate Change Convention in preparation for COP21. And in terms of car emissions, as far as I know, we have no official legislation at the moment that speaks to car emissions, which is a gap. We know that, but I do know that it's something that has been considered by the government. But I don't want to speak out of turn and say I'm not sure what's the plan for looking at car emissions, but it is an area to be addressed.
The fact that we're asking where the plan can be found is a very important one. And Minister, if you're still online with us, it may be one from a policy perspective you might want to address, because one of the challenges, I'm sure all of us will agree today, is finding the information and also finding ways to contribute to the information that the government garners and collects and then makes a plan with. Because I've been looking for it, and the only place I find bits and pieces like Shanique is online from the UN, and because it is a public document there. But moving right along, is there a question coming out of Grand Bahama?
I'm still here, but I'll try to find out the information for you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that would be a very important one, and maybe we could load it up as part of the presentation on the BNT Facebook and their website, because these questions that have been asked, the country's plan for climate change, that they put it together for the meeting in Paris. It would be good for every Bahamian to be able to have access to that. Because I think the student who raised this question is really asking a really good one. There's several other questions that have been asked. There's been a lot of questions asked about how come all this is happening in Abaco and other places and not on their particular island, i.e. Eleuthera, although Eleuthera has a lot of work going on in terms of sustainability. But there was a question in Grand Bahama. I don't know if you can hear us. Can you hear us, Grand Bahama? No, they're not there. But our time has run out, ladies. I don't know how it is possible for us to run up an hour and a couple change to get to just beginning, I believe. So, Portia Sweeting, we got to thank you most and foremost for pulling this together, and we're going to put something on you, and that is we're going to ask you if we can't do this more often, maybe once. What do you guys think? Maybe once every 3 months, let's get together in a webinar and talk with our students and our teachers around the archipelago and see where we can go together, because the sharing that's happened today has been exceptional and very valuable. And Minister, I got to thank you so much for having this be the center of the Women's Week this year. You know, without an environment to sustain us, everything else is for naught. And if you'd like to have some parting words, please, go ahead.
I just think it's very important, and I'm delighted that as we focus on the environment, we're looking at the leadership of women in the environment, and we have so many wonderful examples of it. And just listening to these women, I mean, I'm really overwhelmed with the wealth of knowledge and involvement that they have in this area. And so we're happy to be able to focus on it. And we join you in thanking Portia Sweeting and the Bahamas National Trust for putting this together. Thank all of you, and thank the teachers and the students who have joined us from all around the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Shanique, Nikita, Olivia, Gabrielle, Lakeisha, Portia, BNT, and the Women's Bureau. Thank you so much for pulling this together. We put our contact list up on the slide, and students and others, all those questions you've asked, we're going to continue to collect them. We're going to put them up on the Facebook page. And panelists, please visit the Facebook page in the next couple days and see if you can't join the conversation with the BNT, and we can, continue to do the sharing that we need to do. I mean, after all, we're either going to be swimming or we're going to be swimming. And have a great day. And
Thank you.
congratulations, ladies. Bye.